LeBron James is full of it. And in this particular instance, as it pertains to his son, he is a liar.
He leads the NBA in turnovers per game. The Lakers are one of the worst transition defenses in the league, so that impacts that aspect of it because they're not good at that. Screaming at the refs, yelling at the refs, not even getting back in the frame.
The air in the studio thickened the moment StephenASmith leaned forward and made a statement that immediately ignited debate across the basketball world. He suggested that LeBron James appeared to shift blame toward Luka Dončić after a painful collapse against the Orlando Magic. This wasn't casual sports talk or routine criticism after a bad night. It was an accusation that cut directly into the heart of leadership, accountability, and legacy. For more than 2 decades, LeBron has existed under the brightest spotlight in the NBA, protected and challenged by a powerful media machine that understands his cultural impact. He has mastered the art of responding to pressure, managing narratives, and shaping how his story is told. But when a voice as loud and influential as StephenAS publicly questions whether LeBron deflected responsibility after a loss, the conversation instantly grows beyond a television segment. It spreads across social media, locker rooms, and fan communities, becoming a viral argument about how leaders behave when things fall apart. The debate quickly moved beyond one disappointing result and became something bigger. A test of what leadership really means when expectations are sky high and the margin for error disappears. To understand the controversy, you have to revisit the game itself. The matchup between the Los Angeles Lakers and the Orlando Magic was supposed to be routine business for a team built around one of the greatest players ever. Instead, the final minutes turned chaotic. Offensive possessions stalled, defensive rotations broke down, and the rhythm that usually guides experienced teams completely vanished. The Magic closed the game with more composure and energy, leaving the Lakers searching for answers after a loss that felt avoidable. Post-game press conferences often determine how a defeat is remembered, and this one immediately became complicated. LeBron offered an explanation about a late sequence that some listeners interpreted as redirecting responsibility toward a decision made earlier in the possession by Doncic. To many viewers, it sounded like a simple breakdown of the play. But to StephenA, it resembled something else entirely, a classic public relations pivot where a leader subtly points elsewhere when the spotlight turns uncomfortable. That interpretation triggered a powerful reaction from fans who believe true leaders absorb blame rather than redistribute it. StephenA framed the moment as part of a larger pattern critics have occasionally attached to LeBron throughout his career. On social media, commentators began revisiting past interviews, statements about injuries, and post-game explanations that seemed carefully structured to shape public perception. None of that erases LeBron's achievements, but it feeds a narrative that his remarkable skill at controlling the story sometimes blurs the line between explanation and deflection. Critics argue that when narrative management becomes too polished, it can appear as though optics are prioritized over responsibility. That is the tension StephenA pushed into the spotlight. His argument wasn't simply that LeBron had a bad night. It was that the greatest players, especially those competing for the greatest of all-time conversation, are expected to stand in front of the cameras and fully own failure when it happens. According to him, leadership requires becoming the lightning rod for criticism so teammates don't have to carry that weight themselves. This is where the conversation becomes dangerous for a team trying to maintain unity and focus. Leadership failures don't only appear on stat sheets. They slowly settle into team culture. If players believe their leader might redirect blame when things go wrong, trust inside the locker room can weaken. Coaches notice it. Front offices notice it. Opponents notice it. StephenA's critique therefore expanded the debate beyond a single possession in one game. He suggested that leadership is not measured only by points, assists, or championships, but by how a star responds when everything collapses under pressure. From his perspective, the role of a franchise leader is simple. Absorb the heat publicly so the team can move forward privately. When that mechanism breaks, even in perception, the identity of the team begins to loosen, and identity loss can be fatal for championship hopes. Of course, blame and truth are rarely identical. Statistics and game film tell only part of the story. Even in the loss, LeBron's stat line looked like something fans have seen for years. Productive numbers, influence across the floor, and moments where he carried the offense. Basketball, however, is also a rhythm sport, and rhythm disappears quickly in the final minutes of tight games. There were missed rotations, hesitant possessions, and defensive lapses that couldn't be blamed on a single quote or one teammate's decision. That nuance is exactly where StephenA's criticism lands. He isn't saying LeBron is finished or incapable of leading. Instead, he argues that the standard for a player often mentioned alongside legends like Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant must be even higher. In his view, GOAT candidates must not only dominate statistically but also publicly embrace responsibility on the nights when everything goes wrong. The debate also touches on a broader generational shift happening across the NBA. Younger superstars such as Nikola Jokic and Luka Dončić represent a new wave of leadership that thrives on decisive moments rather than explanations. They want the ball when the clock is ticking down, and they want the outcome, good or bad, to be defined by the play itself. That's why StephenA's suggestion that LeBron pointed toward a younger star struck such a nerve. To some observers, it looked like an uncomfortable moment where the old guard and the new generation briefly collided. In a league constantly searching for its next era, every storyline that hints at shifting power becomes amplified. If younger stars are seen embracing responsibility while veterans appear to protect narratives, the conversation about who owns the future of the league accelerates quickly. Naturally, LeBron's defenders were quick to push back. They point to an unmatched resume of longevity, championships, clutch performances, and statistical milestones accumulated across more than 20 seasons. From their perspective, StephenA was doing what sports media often does, amplifying a controversial interpretation because controversy drives conversation. They argue that LeBron has repeatedly demonstrated leadership throughout his career, guiding multiple franchises to championships and adapting his game as the league evolved around him. In their eyes, the criticism ignores years of evidence showing a player who consistently shoulders enormous pressure while performing at an elite level. Both perspectives carry weight, which is why the debate refuses to fade. The media often frames these discussions as a binary choice. Either defend LeBron unconditionally or declare a leadership crisis after every loss. Reality is far more complex. LeBron's ability to shape narratives has helped him survive the relentless scrutiny that comes with global fame. Yet the very skill that protects him also invites suspicion whenever a statement sounds like a carefully managed explanation rather than raw accountability. That tension sits at the center of StephenA's critique. Beyond basketball strategy, the ripple effects extend into business and branding. LeBron is more than an athlete. He is a cultural institution whose words influence fans, sponsors, and league partners. When debates about leadership explode online, executives and marketers pay attention because perception can influence long-term brand value. How a superstar responds to criticism, how he supports teammates publicly, and how he addresses mistakes can shape how organizations evaluate stability and direction. In that sense, StephenA's comments carry implications that stretch far beyond one regular season loss. Ultimately, the controversy circles back to a timeless sports question. How should greatness be judged? Is it defined by numbers, longevity, and championships, or by the willingness to stand in front of the cameras and absorb responsibility when things collapse? StephenA framed his argument in stark terms. If someone wants to wear the GOAT crown, he believes that person must own failure just as visibly as success. LeBron's career has often been a masterclass in narrative control, but critics argue there are moments when strategy must give way to simple accountability. The debate therefore remains unresolved, forcing fans to choose their perspective. Some will point to film and demand more public ownership of tough nights. Others will highlight 2 decades of leadership, resilience, and historic achievements. The truth probably lives somewhere between those extremes, but as every great sports debate proves, neutrality rarely survives when legacy, leadership, and the future of the game are all on the line.